A record high number of homeless people died in Multnomah County last year. One of the leading causes was drug overdoses, including that newer, more potent strain of meth.
And my oldest son left this world. Those with mental health issues and addiction difficulties matter. Chris mattered. And he's loved and he's missed, and my heart breaks every day for him and everyone in those circumstances.
But first,
he typically was in some sort of dinosaur costume.
The story of Declan the dinosaur, a little boy who loved dinosaurs and the movies about them, suddenly diagnosed with a fatal illness. How blood donations gave him more time.
Those 5 months wouldn't have come if we wouldn't have had platelets on hand to give to him.
And a 1 in a million chance.
You are in my prayers and my thoughts, and I love you.
To live out a Hollywood-inspired dream.
And he got to see his movie.
Here's the story.
Man, what a show we have for you tonight. I'm Maggie Vespa. Welcome to The Story, the show where your questions and your comments drive our coverage. So we have contact info at the bottom of the screen. Please use it. Email thestory@kgw.com. Use that hashtag #TheStoryKGW. As you can tell from that open, we do have an amazing and impactful show for you tonight. So let's get started. Let's get to tonight's big story. As we head into the holidays, blood is one of the most valuable gifts you can give. In fact, the nation and the Northwest both are facing a critical shortage. So that in mind, Laurel Porter joins us with a story of how a little boy from Vancouver might, Laurel, inspire all of us to roll up our sleeves.
Maggie, his name is Declan, and he's proof just how much that gift of a blood donation can mean. As his story resonates from Portland and Vancouver all the way to Hollywood.
Hello, my name is Chris Pratt, and this video is for Adrian and Declan.
Identical twin brothers, Adrian and Declan Reagan. Even the star of the Jurassic World movies knows their names.
You know me. So sorry for what y'all are going through, but I just wanted you to know that I'm thinking about you. I hope that might put a smile on your face.
Their story not only touched Hollywood, it continues to change lives. And the story starts with Declan, who had a nickname.
Declan the dinosaur. Because whenever Declan got to leave his room, he typically was in some sort of dinosaur costume, or he was wearing dinosaur pajamas or t-shirts.
Declan and Adrian were busy doing what brothers often do and looking forward to the next Jurassic World movie. They were about to leave soon on a family vacation when Mom, Lauren, noticed Declan had a rash.
He had these red spots that I'd seen come and go, but head to toe, on his eyelids, across his, completely.
She took him to urgent care.
They're like, this is, you need to get him to an emergency room now.
Tests at the hospital showed Declan's platelet count dangerously low. It was at 8. The normal range is 19 times that. Then Lauren got the news no parent wants to hear.
The head of oncology at Randall Children's is telling us that our son has acute myeloid leukemia, which is extremely rare in children.
She had 48 hours to go home and pack before Declan would spend the next 30 days in the hospital. The twins would be separated for the first time in their 4 years of life.
Our entire family dynamic just changed overnight because now you have to start planning and trying to coordinate with friends and family and jobs, and just life stops.
Over the next 2 years, Declan would have blood transfusions, chemotherapy, 2 bone marrow transplants. But through it all, he lifted others' spirits.
Oh my God, a ball of joy. Declan just had this loving caringness to him.
Along his journey, Declan the dinosaur partnered with the nonprofit Bloodworks Northwest, which supplied the blood from donors who kept him alive.
We were at blood drives all the time because Declan called them blood parties. He thought that everyone at a blood drive was there for him.
And for a kid who got poked by needles a lot, he was there to share his bravery with donors who were not.
Get it, Declan.
And in the hospital, he was saving dinosaurs.
Come with me.
Just like his hero Owen in the movie trailer for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
We watched that movie trailer probably 80 or 90 times because it was like, yes, we're gonna see this movie.
But cancer had its own timeline. After his second failed bone marrow transplant, doctors told the family Declan had only 2 weeks to live.
Playing through my head, I'm like, okay, this movie is coming out in June. Like, this is 6 months-ish away. Like, what are we gonna...
Lauren was determined to beat the odds and get her boys to that movie.
I don't know.
Declan went on hospice care. They stopped treatments, but continued blood transfusions, 2 units twice a week. Make-A-Wish sent them to Hawaii, to the Jurassic World movie set. They threw a big 6th birthday bash for the boys that March. And word got to Jurassic World star Chris Pratt that one of his biggest fans was in a real-life struggle.
I know why we're here. You are in my prayers and my thoughts, and I love you. And I hope to see you later, kids. It's time.
And then something happened Lauren will never forget.
And I got a phone call and they're like, it's done. The movie, they just put the finishing touches. They're flying somebody in.
The movie producers rented out the Liberty Theater in Camas just for the twins and their family. The first fans in America to see the movie they'd been waiting for.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
And so top secret,
I'm glad we could do what we could do.
no photos or video were allowed.
We were just a piece of it that was able to make it happen.
At the end of the day, Declan lived the most fulfilled life that a 6-year-old could ever dream of. And he got to see his movie.
Declan passed away a few weeks later, 5 months after doctors had expected. But that wasn't the end.
Good morning.
Of Declan the dinosaur's story. Like his favorite movies, he had sequels to come.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Lauren. I am the community liaison, but I just wanted to say thank you for donating platelets today.
During Declan's final months,
But he actually received 108 units of platelets.
a priceless gift
Thank you so much for donating.
that inspired Lauren to change her own journey, leaving her job in the hospitality industry to join
How are you?
Bloodworks Northwest.
Presents. Present.
She's working with staff who not only help keep Declan alive,
We have an upcoming promotion with Columbia Sportswear.
they became like family.
Every donor will receive one. And I just now realized, even though I've signed, that you have Declan's card.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
My first day, it was like coming home because I had last seen you at Declan's memorial.
Yeah.
And so, like, full circle to come back in my first day at work, you're here.
This is our first blood drive.
Oh my God.
It is a big deal. We got to have blood donors.
Yep.
She also organizes blood drives in communities like Camas, where the Liberty Theater brought Declan so much joy.
Shop local and get blood.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's helping restart blood drives at high schools like Park Rose.
It's a big deal. Hey, how's it going? Are you coming to donate, right?
Yes. It could save lives.
Yes. Grab yourself a snack and something to eat. Would you like a water bottle, a juice? This is the first high school that we have been at since the pandemic started, so this is a very exciting day.
That before the pandemic provided up to 20% of the blood supply.
I mean, if my blood can save lives, then, you know, that'll make my conscience from day to day a lot better.
Those donations so important now when the nation is experiencing a critical blood supply shortage.
Now imagine what that would mean to somebody like Declan. Those 5 months wouldn't have come if we wouldn't have had platelets on hand to give to him.
I gotta take all the selfies to tag. I post every time I donate.
And Lauren never misses an opportunity to give back as often as allowed.
Squeeze your hand a couple times.
Got it.
It's looking great.
Every 56 days.
You're all done.
That's mine. Now it's going away.
Yep.
What did all those people that donated during that time, what did they give you?
They gave me time. I'm gonna say it's priceless. I lived a lifetime in those 5 months that all those generous donors gave us, and I can never say thank you enough. It's a great reminder.
And on her left arm, the one she always uses to donate,
See the blood going over it?
a tattoo of a mama dinosaur and her 2 baby dinos.
It faces me because it's for me. It's my reminder. Yeah, my 2 baby dinos.
Like the dinosaurs he loved, Declan left a lasting impression long after he left this earth. And a reminder, giving blood is one of the best ways to help humankind.
And in case you're wondering, Declan's identical twin brother, Adrian, is healthy and will turn 10 in March. He's looking forward to the next Jurassic World movie due out next year. And he knows his brother will be watching from above.
Unbelievable to see his story and to see how many people it touched, including people, as you said, in Hollywood. So it was clearly
a beautiful family.
An amazing kid and a beautiful family. And for those, by the way, who saw your story and, not surprising, are inspired to give blood, this Saturday is Blood Donor Day in both Oregon and Washington.
It is, and we hope people will be inspired to give blood. Everyone's invited to be a life force for the community by donating a pint of blood through the end of the year. Now, you do have to make an appointment, but you can do that on the Bloodworks Northwest website. We have a link for you in the Declan the Dinosaur story on KGW.com.
All right, Laurel, well, incredible story, and we're grateful to that family for opening up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maggie.
Still ahead, a look back at TV history.
We took our television cameras up the Columbia River to the site of the Dalles Dam.
KGW's been on the air for 65 years today. But first, a mom who lost her son to mental illness and meth wants you to hear his story.
He was found in a tent in northwest Portland, not too far from where he went to school.
He was one of a record number who died homeless on area streets. What new data tells us about Portland's housing crisis when the story continues.
Welcome back. Keep sending in those questions and those comments to the story at KGW.com or use that hashtag #TheStoryKGW on Twitter. You know, for months now, viewers have been asking us if more people have become homeless in Portland since the pandemic started. And unfortunately, while we see what you all see on the streets, we can't say for sure because the last official count of Multnomah County's homeless population happened in 2019. It showed more than 2,000 people were living on our streets at that time. All the counts scheduled since have been postponed because of COVID. But tonight, we do have a different and grim indicator that tragically, yes, our crisis is worse than ever. According to the latest Domicile Unknown report from Multnomah County out today, the number of people dying on the streets has hit a record high. The report says 126 people died while experiencing homelessness in 2020. That's up from 113 people in 2019 and 92 in 2018. Go all the way back to 2013. That same report showed 32 people died on our streets. And another stat highlighted in that report, the average age of those dying is young, 46 years old. Now, it's one thing to show you the numbers, and I think those were mistaken stats there, but I know you heard them. It's another thing to show you more than the numbers. And frankly, at a news conference today, officials wanted to make sure they drove home the point that we're talking about people with lives and with stories, and frankly, with families. Families like that of Hope Yamasaki. Her son, Chris, is counted among the dead. Here's his story.
My son, Christopher Jordan Madsen Yamasaki, he was born in 1993. He was a beautiful baby. He was curious and excited about life. He loved bowling. He and his brother bowled tournaments and won trophies. He even bowled a 300, which is a perfect score. He went to the Metropolitan Learning Center with his 2 siblings in Northwest Portland. After high school, he went on to Job Corps and got certificates in welding and plumbing. And then he was then offered a position in AmeriCorps working in wind technology and flown to Colorado. He was very excited about that. That's also when he had his first major mental health breakdown. He was later diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder.
So Yamasaki described how Chris's struggles with mental health and staying on his medication got worse in college. Eventually, he started self-medicating with drugs including meth. What happened next, she said, shocked her and her entire family. Chris, with the help of his family, she says, tried to get into treatment several times.
He rotated between trying to get help for addiction and trying to get treatment for mental health. He would be asked to leave addiction centers because they can't treat mental health. Then he would be asked to leave the mental health hospital because they can't treat addiction issues. He didn't want to leave. Sometimes he would beg to stay. He did want help. The last time he was kicked out of the mental health center, it was in the middle of the night. He was dropped off at a shelter 12 hours before he was scheduled to be transported to a dual diagnosis center that might be able to help him. His state was so bad, he didn't even remember how to call me, and he lost his spot at the center and had to go back on the waiting list.
So that cycle, Yamasaki said, continued until one morning in February 2020. A police officer knocked on the family's door. Chris had been found dead in a tent in Northwest Portland, not far from where he went to grade school. The family is devastated, as you'd expect, and they're also still, to this day, flabbergasted because until her son needed it, Hope told us she had no idea it was so hard to get treatment for addiction and for mental health at the same time. And what's more, the drug that gripped her son, meth, is more addictive than ever. We've covered this here on this show, how there's kind of a new, cheaper, more addictive meth floating around on the streets. It's called P2P meth, and it's basically made from household ingredients that are easier to get. And experts say it causes immediate extreme psychosis. You might remember we talked to 3 men in recovery from meth who now work to clean up Portland's streets, and they believe that new meth is absolutely fueling Portland's housing crisis. And earlier today, here are those numbers from before. Officials say meth was a significant factor contributing to 62, or nearly half, of the 126 deaths of people experiencing homelessness overall. And it was a significant factor in 80% of overdose deaths. Experts with Multnomah County said there is reason to believe that more help is on the way. And specifically, they said thanks to Measure 110, which you might remember, it was approved by Oregon voters last year. And among other things, it's using marijuana tax revenue and other funds to open more addiction treatment facilities. Well, Yamasaki wishes there had been any resources or facilities available for her son when he needed them, particularly aimed at, again, treating addiction and mental health resources at the same time.
I feel so much guilt and sadness, but we desperately need dual diagnosis centers and walk-in detox, safe places for people to be who are on meth, and we need better options. Help is not as easy to get as many people think. There's just not enough resources available. The houseless matter. Those with mental health issues and addiction difficulties matter. Chris mattered, and he's loved and he's missed, and my heart breaks every day for him and everyone in those circumstances.
Our thanks to Hope Yamasaki and her family for sharing Chris's story, and we're just so sorry. We'll be right back. Let's talk about a bit of a controversial solution, or what's been pitched as a solution to climate change. We know you'll have a lot of opinions on this. Some researchers say stopping the logging of forests here in the Pacific Northwest would help significantly. Keely Chalmers explains.
When we think of what we can do to help curb climate change, reducing the use of fossil fuels and cutting down our carbon emissions are likely the first things that come to mind. You know, trading in that gas guzzler of a car for a much cleaner electric version. Well, researchers at Oregon State University say there's another very important thing we can do.
If we do not cut down forests, if we reduce our logging, we will be able to sequester carbon dioxide into the trees.
OSU ecology professor William Ripple has long studied the climate crisis and how the cutting down of carbon sequestering trees is not helping matters.
The older forests in the West store massive amounts of carbon in their trees and the vegetation and in their soils. So if we can preserve that, we can help mitigate climate change.
He and his colleagues just published a study showing that preserving large sections of forests, especially old-growth forests, is a low-cost way of protecting both biodiversity and mitigating climate change. They call these protected sections strategic forest reserves. Currently, about 18% of the public forest lands in the country are highly protected. The OSU researchers say we need another 12% of forest lands to be protected to make a difference. In other words, we need to designate designate thousands of acres of land as carbon reserves.
In terms of climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, one of the largest sources of emissions is through logging forests. And if we can create some strategic reserves where logging is not allowed, it can be a significant benefit to mitigating climate change.
Ripple says it would also help the current administration reach one of its goals.
President Biden has talked about preserving 30% of the land by 2030, and creating some of these strategic carbon reserves would help get us towards that goal.
By keeping more carbon sequestering trees standing and letting them do what they do, soak up CO2.
Just like any of the other things we're doing with reducing energy use, this is one tool we have in our bag to really help mitigate the climate emergency.
Keely Chalmers, KGW News.
Now, of course, these findings do not sit well with some. In fact, the Oregon Forest and Industries Council sent us a statement saying OFIC has not yet had the time to thoroughly review this study. We can say that some of the reported findings in this study contradict other studies / recommendations, including from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that support actively managed forests as one of the solutions to climate change. We have more on that story at KGW.com. We're going to finish the show coming up next. Welcome back. I didn't know this until this morning, but it happens to be KGW's birthday, and it's just hitting me we didn't get cake. Why didn't we get cake? The station, though, while we investigate the cake issue, went on the air for the first time 65 years ago today. Here's a look actually at the original KGW crew, the OGs. Richard Ross, Ivan Smith, commentator Tom McCall, sportscaster Doug Lemire, and meteorologist Jack Capel anchored that inaugural show on Saturday, December 15th, 1956. 10 years later, in 1966, KGW aired a special looking back at some of the major stories we covered in that first decade. So let's dig in to the KGW vault.
Here then, in living black and white, are some of the important events of 10 remarkable years. Shortly after KGW-TV went on the air, we took our television cameras up the Columbia River to the site of the Dalles Dam to present live on a special Northwest network the closing of the powerhouse gates and the first water over the new dam. The new building for the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry materialized, for the most part. Zoo director Jack Marks generated even more excitement about the new zoo construction by taking 2 successful expeditions to Antarctica and bringing back 126 penguins. The penguin quarters weren't ready, so the birds were kept in the swimming pool at Peninsula Park. The children couldn't wait to see them, and thousands visited Peninsula Pool to view these comical aquatic birds. 1958 was a year for ceremonies dedicating bridges and freeways. Bridges like the $12.5 million Morrison Street span across the Willamette. Glowing words and bright sunshine keynoted the dedication of the $14 million interstate bridge between the cities of Portland and Vancouver, which were to see such use that in just 8 years later, the bonds were to be paid off and the tolls removed.
In contrasting weather, ceremonies brought into service the final link of the Banfield Freeway, connecting downtown with U.S. Highway 30 and facilitating traffic through Portland's east side. The Port of Portland dedicated the International Airport Terminal building in 1958, a mammoth project using 26,000 tons of concrete and another 1,100 tons of steel, rising 9 stories above 80 acres of black-topped aprons and parking lots.
1959 was the year of Oregon's 100th birthday celebration, centered around a centennial exposition and international trade fair held on the 65-acre Multnomah County Exposition Center.
That was wild. That was fantastic. We were just commenting $12 million for the bridge. That was unbelievable. So cool. We love when you suggest vault segments or any segments, frankly. So pick up your phone and follow us on Twitter. You can always email the story at KGW.com. That does it for the story tonight. The news at 6:30 with Laurel Porter.